So welcome back after a fun summer, hopefully, and you're getting started on your schoolwork. As my email said when I first sent it out, we've had some changes, and I will spare you the details. But basically, we've shifted from a statewide model back to a regional model, which is what we were before. And while that has some pros in some ways, it also has some cons, which you guys kind of fall into. So what we've decided to do is continue working with our math leaders across the state if you want to. And so this evening, see, I'm already on my next day. So this evening, I'm gonna introduce our two math specialists, and then we're gonna talk about some leadership, a leadership framework. And this year, you'll be doing a LEADS project, and we'll talk about what that looks like in a bit. So I'd like to introduce April Taylor. She is our newest math specialist, or one of our newest math specialists. She was actually one of our math tech people last year. And then our other one is Courtney Lamb, and she's our newest. Ladies, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm April Taylor. Okay, I live in Idaho Falls, worked for Idaho Falls School District 91 for a while as an elementary teacher and a district math coach. I've had a chance to work online as well. Just really excited to continue working with the math tech and math leads and the opportunity to keep impacting math education here in Idaho.
And my name's Courtney Lamb, and I was a teacher for, I think, 18 years. And I grew up in Pocatello, born and raised, and then I moved to Washington, Colorado for several years, maybe 20 years. And then I moved back to Pocatello last year, and I just started in August with RMC.
Thank you. I brought in some of the norms that we kind of established last year as leaders and teacher leaders. When we break out into small groups and when we work with each other, it's really great practice to model by example, practicing managing our time on task, monitoring the airtime from each other, and then practicing those leadership skills that we talk about. So to give you just an idea of what this year will look like, starting on that right side where it says networking, these monthly Zooms, the goal of this is to bring us all together, the like-minded people coming together. I know last year was exhausting going for 3 hours, and you guys were absolutely committed, and I was so impressed. But we're going to tone it down to 2 hours rather than 3 hours. I know. Thanks, Danielle. Stamp of approval. Yeah, we're not heartbroken about it either. We just loved our time with you, but we also recognize that that's quite a bit. So we're hoping to have some sort of reflection or celebration in June, and similar to what we did last year. Last year you did the monthly meetings with implementation and next steps after every meeting and just kind of journaled that. This year we're going to introduce to you a leadership project format that we'd like you to participate in. So as you continue your learning, you'll also be stepping out and starting, if you haven't already, many of you have, influencing those in your work, in your school, in your buildings, and in your district. And then the learning component will also come from our monthly meetings and occasionally things to do in between. All right, Courtney.
Okay. Andy, are you going to manage the slides or should I share mine?
Why don't you just go ahead and say next and I'll just click it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, that should work. Okay. Okay, like I said, my name is Courtney Lamb, and I'm going to be kind of leading the leadership part of all of this. So we're going to be talking about leadership. Some of what we cover will be related specifically to school leadership and also leadership in the context of math. However, some of what we cover is research and practices just related to research in general. So it could relate to school leaders, but also business leaders and the like. So it may not be specific always to school leadership, but everything we cover will be pertinent and can translate to leadership within a school system. All right, next. Okay, so we're going to talk about the word leader and the word leadership and associations. Many of us have associations with the word leader or leadership, whether or not we are aware of them. So these associations might be informed by our culture, perspective, identity, or other aspects of our own past experience. So I want you to take a minute and think about the word leader and the word leadership and some of the things that come to mind. And let me get this link. I'm going to put, so Angie, I guess actually for this, I might need to, I don't need to share it yet, but we might need to switch. I'm going to put a Jamboard link in the messages, if I can remember how to, in the chat. And I want you to go in there. Let's see, 1 second. There we go. And there, Angie's showing that. And so, Angie, do you know how to add a note? Can you show them how to do that in case anyone hasn't used this? Down at the bottom, like left-hand side, there is a square up, underneath the arrow. There you go. If you click that, I want you to write on here some of the things that come to mind when you think of leader or leadership. And you don't have to write your name or anything. Yep, just like that. And then click save and it'll pop up and we can look at each other. So if you want to go to that link that was in the chat, and then you can click add where it's add a note and just think about that for a minute and we'll share out. So I'll give you a few minutes to kind of add your thoughts to that board. Okay, does anyone, you can keep adding too. Does anyone want to either share theirs or talk about what they notice from these? And I don't think there's too many of us, so you could just probably unmute yourself and start talking. We'll try that.
It has to involve other people.
I love that. I'm trying to think what that would look like if you were just a leader to yourself. Maybe that's just being independent. Great. What else? Do you, oh, go ahead.
I think, sorry, it's just challenging because I'm on my phone because my computer's being annoying. When people talk about, you know, being a good leader and wanting to lead and wanting to make changes, but that they don't listen to the community, they don't listen to the people that they're, the organization that make up the organization that they're leading. Like you're not really leading then, you're just kind of dictating and forcing people to do something. If you're going to lead, you have to like take the people with you. And you can't do that without trust.
I like that. Let's see. If you're dictating, are you leading? That's an interesting thing. Is that a type of leadership?
I would say not truly. It's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband and I have had this conversation a few times. There's a difference between a leader and a boss. A boss is the person that dictates and, you know, doesn't really take feedback. They know the direction they want to go versus a leader who they might still want to know the direction they need to go, but they take input from everyone around them and they're willing to adjust their preconceived thoughts based on the wisdom that everybody else has.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of roles that could be confused with leadership too. And sometimes that's boss, sometimes that's manager. So we're going to talk a lot about what does that mean to be a leader. I'm looking at this board. Did anyone put anything that has some negative connotations? It looks pretty positive.
I think that boss has a negative connotation for me personally. Just that sense of like you hope you look at the person you're accountable to as a leader and not just a boss. But I think that's really splitting hairs sometimes too, because I think a leader may be guiding and hopefully the others are following, but it might not always be voluntary, because sometimes there is buy-in and sometimes there's not, and sometimes there's consequences and sometimes there's not. So it just depends on the dynamic.
Thank you. I mean, already you've all brought up so many good points that we've talked about this for just a few minutes, and you can see there's a lot of complexities in leadership, right? Let's see, Angie, you can go back to the slide, please. And go to the next one. Okay, so leadership examples from our life. So while some individuals have positive associations with the word leadership or leaders, it can have negative associations for others. This could be particularly true for maybe identities or communities that are marginalized. And associations with leadership can also depend on context. So whether leadership is earned or whether it's assigned, for example, or whether it serves a public good or an individual's ambition, whether it involves leading subordinates or peers or the broader community. So we'll do a lot of reflection. It's important to recognize your individual lived experience, whether you or someone close to you has had good or bad interactions with leaders in the past. Andy, can you click? Okay, so I want you to think of a leader, someone you think of as a leader that either inspired you or frustrated and deterred you. And what qualities did that leader possess? Ideally, this would be someone you have firsthand experience with. If not, you could think of someone bigger, someone famous that you think of as a leader. But hopefully you can think of an example from your own life. And then Angie, I don't know if I can do this where I am. I was going to put them in a breakout room for just about 2 minutes so that they could kind of share. I think, I don't care if we do 2 or 3. Let's see, do I have the power to do that? Do you want to do that or should I do that? I see your mouth moving. I think you're muted.
2 rooms or 3 did you want?
Let's do 3 rooms.
Okay, so if we do 3 rooms, oops.
So while she's doing that, you'll think of a leader, positive or negative, and what qualities did that leader have? And we'll really only give you about a couple of minutes. So share briefly and let the next person. Can't tell, hopefully. Does anyone want to share something that they discussed in their breakout room? Oops, are you talking, Danielle, or are you?
I'm
You're
hollering at my
if you're
dog so
talking
that
to
I can
us.
talk without a squeaky toy in the background. Yes, I will share. Now I have to focus on what I was thinking. It's been a long day. I had my observation today, so I'm trying to focus. Just that just modeling what you're asking of others, I think, is one of the things I admire most in a leader, and the expectations are set and they are living to those expectations too, or trying to meet those expectations as well. And then something that both Courtney and April came up with was that sense of feeling valued as an individual, and then using those individual resources to the advantage of the team, which I thought, I don't know that I've ever experienced that on a really like masterful level. So that was interesting to hear that, because I think that would be really wonderful.
I love that, both of those comments. Okay, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, because I have two Zooms going on here and it's kind of confusing.
No, you're doing good. Anyone else? What else?
Yes.
I have pretty good wait time, so I'll wait for one more. We can get one more out.
We talked about, kind of meeting people where they're at. We're having a little bit of a struggle with, some of our leadership is like, talking to us way up here, but we have
On the floor.
still with a locker, like,
Yeah.
catch up because they're brand new, so that's not very effective.
Do you kind of mean the expectation isn't matching reality? Like they want you here, but reality, this is where we are.
Yeah, or they're talking ideas and strategies and things that are just beyond, a good chunk of staff members, so.
It's tricky. Okay,
They mean well.
that's something. Okay, let me share
Well,
here. Oh, go ahead.
So, and something that I think about too is that, I mean, going from what was just shared, that, you end up often getting, especially in education, I think you get a lot of competing leadership. So it's like you have requirements and mandates from the leaders in the state. You have, the Department of Education leadership, but then you also have the legislature with their thing, and then you have your superintendent with their thing and your principal with their thing, and then there's reality in the classroom. And so it's like you can be spending a lot of time. Like I know some of our teachers got really frustrated at our staff meeting last week because we were told we had to create a Google Classroom so that we could use this new online software that our superintendent, thinks is awesome, even though he's never worked in a school for a day in his life. So it's like people just like, okay, you're taking away our time to do something that, you don't understand what else we're already doing.
It's a lot of levels, layers
Yeah.
of leadership. And then kind of what Danielle was saying is that talking the talk, walking the walk. And if you haven't been in the classroom, that's hard to do. So, okay.
For both Jennifer and Avery and Heather, though, I noticed that connection of like how demoralizing it is when you don't respect the boots on the ground and the people who
Yeah.
are there every day and use those resources, because we are your experts, those people that are there and doing the work. And so if that's just brushed aside, eventually you lose your experience because people leave and you leave everybody else feeling helpless, worthless, frustrated, angry, whatever, pick your adjective.
Yep. Yeah. It's tricky, it's complicated, it's messy. Was this where we were? Yeah. Okay. So many of you maybe have heard of Brene Brown. She's a researcher and she does more like psychology, sociology type stuff, but her most recent book, I think, was Dare to Lead. And I just want to read this. This was something that comes from that Dare to Lead. So she said, I've dedicated my entire career to studying human behavior, emotion, and thought. I spent the last 10 years specifically looking at leadership, and here's what I know for sure. We can't understand leadership if we don't talk about power. We have a strange relationship with the word power. We often think of it as negative, strong arm experience. Yet at the exact same time, one of the single worst human experiences is powerlessness. No one wants to feel powerlessness. It's a desperate and isolating experience. Okay. Up at top, it says this is, well, they talk about Martin Luther King's definition, which is power is the ability to achieve purpose and affect change. She says this is the most accurate and important definition of power that I've seen. The definition does not make the nature of power inherently good or bad, which aligns with what she's done in her research. So she said, what makes power dangerous is how it's used. Power over is driven by fear. Daring and transformative leaders share power with, empower people to, and inspire people to develop power within. So we're going to look a little bit more on that. So she talks a little bit about power over versus power within. And I'm going to go through this quickly because I know I'm already a little bit over my allotted time. So instead of me reading it, maybe just take a look at that. Over time's sake, we're not actually going to discuss this, but it's something to think about, and I could share this with you if you're interested. I don't think it's in the navigation guide, but I want to get to a few other things. So let's see. Okay, so
All right, let's go ahead and come back together. Let's see. So which screen here? Is it showing? I'm not sure which screen is sharing. Is it sharing the NCSM leadership in mathematics education? Okay, perfect, good. So where did this framework even come from? And it was really built to support the national, well, I don't think they go by this name anymore, but NCSM is a leadership, professional leadership organization, and this is their mission and vision statement. And the framework really outlines and identifies what it takes to be a leader, and then what actions are necessary to support fulfilling this mission and vision statement. So take a minute and just read over these. And as you're reading in chat, would you just type out any words that really stick out to you, words that seem really key? Diverse, yeah. Empowers. High quality. Flexible, yeah. Equitable. We've got a lot of really powerful words that just, there's a lot of meaning and intention with these words as well. Equips. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So in chat in just a second, I'm going to put a Jamboard link. And if we go to our navigation guide, I kind of, well, the Jamboard link is on there as well, but I'll get that in chat too. But I kind of had us grouped out like group 1, 2, 3, or 4, and whatever group number you were, that would be your Jamboard page as well. But I'd like Karen, let's move, oh, thanks, Angie. Karen, let's shift you over into group 3. And then I think all the other, yeah, I think Charity and Jennifer, I think it'll be fine to have 2 in the group. So go to your Jamboard, go to that page, and then we're going to answer these 3 questions. Why do we need bold leadership? How would you define bold leadership? And who are leaders? Kind of brainstorm and share those ideas. So let's kind of, it was fun to pop in and also look at the Jamboard and see all the neat ideas. I don't know if you had a chance to go in and look and see what other groups said and some of their ideas, but it was really neat. So I want to just ask this one other question, and we can just kind of have a whole group discussion on this. But how are we, and in what ways are we bold leaders in our current positions?
Hopefully we're taking the initiative to keep up on the research and bring it to our schools.
I feel like the things I learn in these meetings gives me the confidence to be able to go and give a reason behind why a change needs to happen or a shift in our thinking or teaching practices?
I see a lot of head nods on that one, Charity.
I think it's important to instill the value behind confidence, that it's okay to shift the process of how we teach, that we don't have to be fundamentalists that are stuck in one mode of teaching. That I was telling my group, I got my new room because I'm teaching just math this year. Excuse me, I'm really tired. We started a middle school, and I said part of the agreement was I wanted to do building the thinking classroom. So I said, I need you to trust me. I've taught for you for 5 years. It's my 6th year. I want one whole wall of whiteboards. And there was a little resistance. I was told it was too expensive. And I said, if you want results, you'll trust me. And then I had to I had to have the confidence in myself enough to say that and have that voice. So I feel like having a voice and having the confidence to be that, like you said, bold, you have to be able to put it out there. So I got 25 feet of whiteboards across one whole wall in my room. Anyway, that's my opinion.
That's awesome. So awesome.
Nice.
Kind of off topic, but I found this contact paper that's whiteboard contact paper, and it's pretty cheap, and I covered all my windows with it so the kids can't see the playground, but we still have light. So that was another way that I was able to get like a wall of whiteboards.
I love when we can get together and share these ideas. There's so many little things. But yeah, it's kind of neat to think that we are leaders where we're at, and we have that credibility with the things that we're doing and going on. And so I wanted to talk really briefly about, there's stages of leadership. And so stage 1 is just really kind of building our own self-awareness of leadership, and we're starting to be recognized for our teaching abilities and our knowledge. And I really felt like the project that we did last year and the opportunities we had to kind of play and engage in some of those mini implementations. I don't know about you, but I know for me, it felt like, okay, like I can go to people and start sharing some things and start maybe shifting. And I don't know if anyone else had some of that same experience or same opportunities. So we're starting to be seen a little bit of having some of that credibility. And stage 2, we are shifting into building networks, and we are developing and learning about those interpersonal skills to be able to work with people. And we have that commitment to lead a change in just our sphere of influence. We have that passion for it, and we want to move forward with that. And stage 3 of leadership is really more at a systemic change. We're influencing change outside of our own immediate sphere. And, we don't go through these stages like within just a year. There might be several years within different stages as we transition and go through. And so this year for our work, we're really going to be focusing on just stage 1 and 2 and kind of self-identifying where are we comfortable at, where are we at. And maybe throughout our work, we might find that we're kind of in transition and shifting back and forth. So we're going to use these stages to really help us identify where we are and what we're doing. And so this is another, well, I guess it's a matrix of that framework for leadership. So over on the left-hand side, we have our guiding principles, and these define the work of mathematical leaders. So this would help us define the type of leadership work that maybe we would be engaged in, whether it's advocacy, designing structures and designing and implementing structures, just empowering that culture and professionalism and collaboration, and then monitoring and acting on student evidence. So it's kind of defining the type of leadership work we would do. And then across the top row, these are the imperatives or those stages of leadership. And we can use it to help us identify what stage we're in and maybe where we would transition to next. But what's really powerful is those far 3 right columns. These descriptors help us shift from one stage to another. So it's really, these are the actions that we would be doing as leaders to help develop that shared vision of, high quality math instruction and student engagement in that. So, how is this framework relevant to what we're doing? And I think as we engage in this year's LEAD project, which Angie's going to be talking about in just a little bit, as we're going through that project and then reflecting back and looking at this framework, I think we're going to see opportunities to step forward into different leadership roles and different leadership actions to really promote high quality mathematics. And so we're really going to try and these are going to run hand in hand tandem, and we're going to develop our leadership skills, but really impact what our sphere of influence at whatever stage level we feel that we're at or that we're comfortable with. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Angie.
Okay, so you can see the framework for leadership. I want to stay on here for just a quick second. Last year, all of your work was focused, when we worked with you, everything was focused around that imperative one, your commitment to yourself. As leaders and teacher leaders in whatever capacity, whether formal, informal, we always are working to improve our own craft. And as you realized and learned last year, if not before, it's a messy process to learn new things and to get it to look good, right? But this year, as you're continuing to improve your commitment to yourself, keep working on those principles to actions, keep working on those things that you read in your book study this summer. But this year, our work together is going to focus on that imperative two, a commitment to your colleagues. Now, many of you actually would leave these meetings and go share with your colleagues. And you had already systems set up where you could do that, or you were in a position to. This year, formally, we're going to ask you to. Now, what that looks like will be entirely up to you. So I'm going to, instead of have you sit through a 10-minute sit and get of me describing everything, I'm actually going to create a screen recording and just send it out to you so you can just watch it whenever. And it will describe the whole project, but I don't want to hit you with that at 9 o'clock at night. So, so what I want to do is, before we get into the needs assessment, hopefully you were able to start looking at some of the framework pieces and really thinking about your sphere. But before we do, the project in total will probably take you more than 30 hours. I've kind of mapped out 30 hours, but what I've got right now is funding for about $750 stipends. So if you complete the project as a whole thing, we've got a stipend for you. If there's only this many people that will be joining us, I actually could probably bump it to 1,000. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that with our budget. But for right now, we'll keep it at $750. So the purpose is it to basically support you as you start extending out. So whether you decide to work with a team or you work with at a whole school level, that's going to be up to you. Maybe you decide to just reach out to a colleague and they're the person that you're influencing. The objective will be to create an action plan and affect change within your teaching areas. Basically, that's how we're justifying the stipend. The state has said no stipends, no stipends. So we're basically hiring you as independent service contractors to affect math in your area. So that was my workaround, and that's how I got approval for the funds. Aren't I smart? So yes, we're paying you to do some sort of professional learning opportunity in your school is what we're doing. It doesn't have to be the formal PD. It can be though. And then at the end, we're going to have a reflection time. You're going to share out what your plan was, what the outcomes were, what changes you saw. So you really want to be thoughtful in what evidence and data are you going to collect. It doesn't have to be like formal research level data, but how are you going to know that you had an impact? How are you going to know that you affected change in your sphere? So we have a graphic, and I'll give you more information on this later, but right now we're really focusing on the set of focus section. And we really want to look at the needs assessment. One thing as a leader, I get very passionate about things, and I'll learn new things, and I want to take it to the world. And so, as you guys mentioned at the beginning, so many times the teachers aren't where I'm at. And I'm so excited about this, and they're just along for the ride because I say so. And Charity's been with me for 10 years, so she knows exactly what I'm talking about. So it's important that we have a real clear picture of the needs of our area. So some of you studied building thinking classrooms, but I bet you can pick out colleagues that aren't ready for that yet. I'll bet you can point to admins that aren't ready for that kind of novel instructional style. So we want to make sure that we have a clear picture of what's really needed and where can we meet in the middle? Where can we influence change in the way that our colleagues need as well? All right. So how many of you, just by raise of hand, were able to dive into that needs assessment a little bit? Yay. If not, that's okay. What we're going to do is, okay, so raise your hand if you did. All right, so Lori, Karen, I thought there was one other person. What I want you to do is I'm actually going to split you into two groups, and Karen and Lori.
Justine is raising her hand.
What's that?
Justine is raising her hand.
Oh, yay, Justine. I still want you to discuss some of these questions. Like, my hope was, what was your 3 areas of interest? Maybe it was similar or different than what you thought the needs were. Maybe it was drastically different. Now, you do not have to base your project around the lowest scoring component on this needs assessment. Sometimes when I work with schools and teachers, I actually pick one of the highest scoring ones because that says, hey, you're already doing this well, let's elevate it. And that brings in a much more positive approach. So what I want you to do is talk about areas of interest. Did anything surface that surprised you? And then does anything here influence what goals you might set for your independent project? That's really what it is an independent project. So we have, let me see the time. We're good on time. I'm going to set the timer for 15 minutes and I will put you into breakout rooms quickly. I tried to pop into some of your meetings. Was there anybody that noticed something that surfaced on your needs assessment that surprised you as you started thinking about it? And if not, that's okay. But it was it should have been pretty comprehensive. Like, Lori, did it give you a good feel for what's happening, or did you kind of see already what was going on?
So at our school, we've been going through the developing our PLC, and we're starting with the LA.
Mm-hmm.
And we were hoping math would be a focus this year, but when we went to a big PLC conference in Coeur d'Alene right before school started, and we realized we needed to spend more time on ELA, and a lot of us were crushed. We were looking forward to math.
Right.
So right now we're really, there's a ton of enthusiasm for getting our standards, essential standards selected, unwrapped, and really, getting that PLC process going, and really looking forward to next year doing this with math. In fact, a couple of teachers were really upset, and we know they're doing it anyway. And I think we all are, actually, because how do you not, when you know this is what you need to do? So it was, as I went through, it was hard to sometimes just answer the question without thinking, okay, now where are we in that PLC process? And let's see, so overall I was pretty encouraged, even things that are down at the 2 or 3 level. We know it's in the works,
Mhm.
and we've got so many needs at our school that it's just going to take time to get there. But I really feel like we're all on board. So
What a great place to start.
yeah, that's really cool. So I guess yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Let me share my screen real quick. Okay, so we're not gonna, oh, didn't share, hang on. Can you see the right screen now with the 5-minute timer on it? We're actually not gonna do this right here and now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna skip to the next steps. What I want you to do is sometime in the next few days, really, if you haven't done that needs assessment, it will be part of that that project portfolio. So make sure you spend some time on it. It could take you a fair amount of time if you're collecting and writing your evidence pieces. Like, don't just score it here where it says level 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you're matching the level description and then providing some rationale and reasoning. That helps us. It helps us be really intentional about how we're looking at our school. And then when you're done with that, in the next steps, and this is what I'm going to go to, I'm going to have you write a brief summary. And when I say brief, I mean a few sentences. A brief summary about what your area of focus is going to be. What do you want to influence? Why? What's your reasoning? I'm going to show you what this looks like on your navigator right here. You'll see something called a logic model. So if you click on that, there's a whole bunch of them. You get to call or claim a slide. So pick your favorite number and hurry and get your name typed in it. So if you wanted number 7, because I like number 7, I would grab it and I type my name into that box. And when you write your brief summary, this is where you're going to write it in that purple column. What's the situation? What did you notice? And I will send all of this in a follow-up email so that it's just right there for you. But I just want you to kind of know, and I have an example for you that's in the slides, and it looks like this. So if you look at that purple part, this is how this person wrote it up. Just real briefly on what the situation is. We're going to start working on our goal this next month. In between now and then, we'll really do some refining. But right now, I just want you to kind of be aware of your situation, the situation at the school, do that needs assessment. And then let's go to next steps. So you'll write your follow-up, and I've put the hyperlink, and I'll make sure this all comes in an email. I want to ask you to continue practicing your teaching and best practices, teaching and learning in your classroom. Keep working on those, everything that you wanted to work on last year that we didn't get to because we have great intent and life gets in the way. And I will also ask you to create a participant folder. This is where you can store everything for your portfolio. And all it is I've set up a Google Drive folder for you to store everything, and I can drop in templates of documents that we have. So you'll get instructions on that. Next month, please bring a rough draft of a goal that you'd like to set for this project. And I put a couple examples in the navigation guide just for you to kind of see. And then start thinking about what is it that you're going to collect as evidence of change or growth. So how do you know? I'll tell you, just because I deliver what I think is an amazing PD doesn't mean it was an amazing PD. Like, I have to know, does that what I created, does it actually impact teachers' perceptions? Does it impact their changes in their classroom? Does it impact how they think about math or what they believe about themselves as math? So when I develop a PD or a course or a workshop or work with a team at a school, I have to ask myself, how do I know if I'm being successful with these teachers? What does that look like? Sometimes it's a survey. Sometimes it's observations. So you don't necessarily have to be thinking of really formal things, but I want you to start thinking about it as far as, well, what would that look like? Just like I don't want to get into I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth with SMART goals, because a lot of times there's a formula to them, and 70% of the teachers will do this. And really what I want to know is, are you growing? Are you changing because of this? Because I think it happens over our career as opposed to, oh, let's see, 30% of my math leads will do this. I don't know. Okay, it's not my style, but if it's your style, that's great. All right, so I will send all of this in an email. I want to know if there's any, I'm going to stop sharing. I want to know if there's any questions or conversations you'd like to have.
You mean like right now or for the
Either or.
I have a question. As we're setting this goal, when I was looking at the needs assessment, I was thinking as a team, are you wanting us to focus? I mean, I've heard Sarah, right? Is it Sarah? Her name left my brain. Yeah, April. I want to call her Sarah because she looks like a friend of mine that's named Sarah. April was saying it could be like, or maybe you did, that it could be focusing on one person, or like, do you care if it's a person or a team, or maybe your principal lets you work with the school? Do you have a certain group of people you want us targeting?
No.
For this goal?
And I think that's important, that you choose what you have the capacity to affect. So you might be in a situation where you can't go in and do something larger because you don't have the authority, you don't have the situation or whatever, but maybe you have another teacher. Maybe there's somebody that will work with you. Maybe you're working on your PLCs and you can affect some conversation that happens there. Like, we're not going to define that. You have to define how are you, where are you pushing out? And we want you to push out. And where's that going to be? One thing I will say is, once you put together your plan, we will ask you to sit down with your administrator to make sure that it's in line with school goals and it's something that you feel and they feel is reasonable and feasible. A lot of times if you say, this is for a class I'm doing, I've never not had anybody be fully supportive, but April, will you share your experience that first year when you guys went to your district? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. We could not find anybody that would sit down and listen to us and let us share what we were working on and why we were working on it and how we hoped that it would help. We just wanted to be a support as well. So we had a really hard time. We went to several different levels, kind of school level, and then we kind of kept trying to pop out. But at the end, we were able to meet with a couple district level people, and they really, really liked the idea. And they were like, oh, this aligns with what we've been thinking and our thoughts, and kind of just left it there. But it was a little bit of a challenge, but we went ahead and kind of mapped it out and kind of prepared things and had it set and ready to go when the opportunity arose.
Yeah. It was kind of sad because you guys called me and were like, we can't get anyone to hear us. So think about, to answer Charity's question, no, There's nobody that we're requiring that you target. We want you to be comfortable stepping out into teacher leadership in a way that you're comfortable. Okay?
And can you, you know me pretty good. Can I be pretty audacious, even though I know I'm gonna have, like, I want to take this to my team. I'm already working really close with someone. Awesome. Last year was awesome with her and I. My classroom, not so great, but her and I, we meet every Thursday, but I want to go to my team, but I know I'm going to get so much fight back. Is that, I mean,
So
I'm
the
afraid
thing
my
that I
goal
want
is
you
not
to
going to look is
right. The thing I want you to
Achieve-
consider is just weigh very carefully the long-term outcomes. Because we've had people, I'm a bulldozer, I get it. I've burned some bridges, I have to back way up. Sometimes you can't back up far enough if you're too pushy. So if you're there for a long time, you want to maybe map out a smaller bite or a longer pathway. And you know your team, I know your team. You might want to think about what are the smaller bites that they might be able to handle? Or if I approach it in this way, is this something that they would be on board? Maybe they're helping me with my class or something along that line. So you kind of have to just weigh the pros and cons and consequences, like that cost benefit analysis. And you know what? That's a really hard thing to learn, but it's very valuable skill. Very valuable skill. Like like I said, I've burned some bridges and I've learned from them and I still do it and I learn from it and I still do it just because I get excited about things. So you really want to be careful, but not be, I mean, it's that balance of being bold and being cautious. Where's the line? I don't know.
you're still learning where the line is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm much better than when I first came on board. I was so excited. The whole world was going to change. I learned some things. Any other questions? Okay, it is 9 o'clock. Have a great night. I will send a follow-up email tomorrow afternoon and we'll see you later.